What's up, guys? Running it back with another replay for you. Rifts at World's Edge, BossToss versus Solo Spaghetto in another tourney finals game. We're going to see how it goes. I have never watched BossToss play, so it's going to be an experience to say the least. And facing really stiff competition, Spaghetto is one of the best players in the community. Certainly wants to get a couple more tourney wins under his belt, I imagine. And helming the forces of Khorne. Not seen him play on it, so that's another factor that's worth taking a look into. So just a fat line of infantry. I mean, the most heavy metal of Khorne 8 builds. Chaos Warhounds in the forest, gonna jump on the number 1 and capture that, I'm sure. Wolfric and, pretty low-tier infantry corps here. Lots of spears, marauders, and one marauder berserker. Wolfric is on his horse. He's got Hunter of Champions and Seafang, typical kit that he would bring. And you've got Ephemer Balefiend of Shadows, which is a good call because Melkoths and Pit of Shades here, both very good against these, not elite, but very cost-effective Khorne 8 infantry, who are just going to be scooting up. There's 4 freaking dual weapons here. 3 dual weapons, my mistake. And I believe 4 Chaos Warriors. Yeah, 4 Chaos Warriors. That's pretty crazy. That's a lot of armored infantry to be bringing out onto the field. But we're going to see how it works. I mean, certainly as of right now, Norska has nothing to deal with those outside of the caster. So it's really going to come down to the magic play, it looks like, in the early going here for Norska to withstand this gigantic force. Early going, we've got some hounds going after the Horsemasters. One Horsemaster does go down, pulled down off of his horse by an angry hound. They get a little bit of counterfire and send them packing. Full of javelins, these guys. So, nice plays by both sides, just poking in here in the early going. BossToss showing off some pretty good skills with the Marauder Horsemasters so far. Not letting them get caught, and getting some good poke against their answers on the field. Giving up the number 2 objective, it looks like. Retreating into a more defensive formation here. I do actually kind of like that. Not loving the gap here in the formation, but not a bad call to just rally up and make sure that there isn't an opportunity for the forces of chaos to get back here and deal with the Horsemasters. Good damage on Valkia. That must have been a javelin volley there. Poking in against her and getting about 500 HP off of her in the early going here is pretty nice. Oh, and the Hunter of Champions going down. Sloughnir in response, gonna hit all of the horsemen, hits the Marauder Berserkers. That's some good damage there, and not committing to trying to kill her, though, is a bit questionable, but huge volley from the Horsemaster line, wrecking those Minotaurs, who are getting countercharged by Skinwolves as well. Minotaur's getting taken to town here a little bit. They're gonna beat the Skinwolves regardless, I think. Just because Minotaurs are so beefy with their combat prowess. But man, oh man, are they taking a lot of javelin fire. But a good collapse on the rear here from the Chaos Warhounds. Getting on top of the Horsemasters, who now have to turn around and deal with those guys before they can fire anymore. But there is one more getting some free shots, and a unit of Fleshhounds on top of the spears, but also on top of these Horsemasters who do finally pull back. And an amazing Pit of Shades. Man, that's wrecking these poor Chaos Warriors here, man. They're taking a lot of damage. So, one very expensive infantry unit dealt with, but it does look like Khorne is outgrinding in the infantry engagement so far. That's not terribly surprising. Like I said, there's really only one decent infantry unit here, and that's the Berserkers, who really aren't even that good against Khorne 8 warriors to begin with. Just they don't have very good AP. Their armor is terrible, so they just kind of get smacked up by these guys more often than not. But they are holding, and they're enabling the Horsemaster Corps to get away. They only one of these units is tattered, and they still have most of their models. Pretty good value on them so far, actually. Let's see what BossToss can do into the late game with those guys, because he's going to have to do something. He's losing his entire front line here. All of the infantry across the field are pretty much dealt with on the Norscan side, outside of this Marauder Spearman unit, which is running for their lives. Good call. Gonna give up the objectives, but jumping onto the middle, maybe gonna take this and keep the triple cap from going in.
The enemy has captured.
We'll see how this gets managed. Some Marauders isolated out here, grabbing the Skin Wolves and attacking these guys would actually be a pretty good call, but keeping them together with the Horsemen is probably even better. And Wolfert going in alone to fight all of these infantry. The Hunter of Champions is also the greatest 1vx combatant in history, too, apparently. But that's a fat bit of shades. And a Sea Fang on top of that. What a combo. Honestly, locking all of these guys into a really dense formation and dropping that right on their heads, wrecking 2 infantry units. Almost 1,000 value on the Sorcerers so far, which is pretty nice. And the Skin Wolves are fighting these Minotaurs here. Probably going to handle them. They're very low, and the regen on the Skin Wolves is really nice, enabling them to stick in combat a little longer. 1 unit of Marauder Horsemasters jumping on top of both of the Throwing Axe Horsemen for Khorne, shutting down the supporting fire, which would do really well to deal with these Skin Wolves. Leaving these guys in combat against the dual axes is a little questionable, but they do have the decent armor, so they're not taking as much damage as they could be, and they are mitigating the bonus versus infantry from these guys. We'll see how that plays out in the long term. Gonna just take a look around the battlefield. Middle objective is Norska, Khorne with the number 1 and 3. Horsemaster Corps retreating through the Berserkers who are coming in to buffer out these Hounds of the Blood Hunt, who do have Melkoths popped on them just to slow them down, giving just enough time for those Horsemasters to squeak through. 1 Horsemaster dead back here, but got its value back, so nice work from BossToss. He does have a bit of an uphill climb to go still, though. Down by about 500 value. That can be pretty tough for Khorne if the game is even. More often than not, Khorne is winning just because of the good leadership and very powerful combat stats. Sloutmere coming down, doing pretty good work against those Berserkers. The Skin Wolves are suffering, fighting against all of these units here. They're about to rout, but they'll get away and regen, surely. These guys, broken yet again, but still got 9 models, still got a little bit of room to do some healing. And Fury's back here hunting down one of the Horsemasters. Unfortunate for Norska, but a countercharge with the Beasts of Tashnar onto those Chaos Furies. Oh, and there's some Norscan Ice Wolves chasing these guys as well. Maybe going to be able to deal with those Furies, while over here we've got a battle between the Horsemen. Khorne Marauder Horsemen are actually really good in melee combat because they've got great weapon strength and a really good charge bonus. But Horsemasters, they're also pretty solid in melee combat. They don't have the same weapon strength or charge bonus, but they do have slightly better stats and are a little more consistent, as well as having a much better missile. I mean, javelins just travel much quicker and can do a lot more damage to the dual axe AP axe horseman here. Blah. Words. But yeah, Norska pulling back very efficiently. Wow, those Furies melted to all of these Hound units, and the Horsemen over-pursuing with their Fury support. What the hell was that? Sword of Khorne landing in the middle of the trees there. Maybe... I think Spaghetto just mistimed it with the Hounds were there a minute ago. Very unfortunate miscast of a very powerful army ability that's probably depleted the army ability pool for Spaghetto as well, which is going to make it a little bit more difficult for the units across the battlefield to keep doing well. But there are a lot of heavily armored infantry still out for the forces of Khorne here. Some Marauder champions just going it alone against warriors, dual weapon warriors, and some Chaos Warriors here getting routed away by some spears. Oh, wow, these guys got some pretty good value. 700 value on them. It's not bad. Furies sizing up a potential engagement. They've got some decent value on them. Norscan Ice Wolves, or the Beasts of Tashnar, rather, getting on top of these routing Khornate forces, doing some good damage. Gonna get countercharged here from the throwing axes, but they pull out. What great control and micro here. Gonna get on the Flesh Hounds. They'll lose, but they're gonna do a lot of damage to these guys that can't be healed up. Not bad. I think that's worth it for the Beasts of Tashnar, since they are gonna get caught in the position they were in regardless. Oh no! Out here on the edge, Valkia fighting some Ice Wolves, as well as the Fimir Balefiend and Wolfric Honor. She is slowed down. Frostbitten. She's much slower on the ground than she is in the air. The 67 speed is a lie. She's got like 45 speed on the ground, and it's even slower with Frostbite going on. And Ice Trolls, oh no! Get the full surround on her! This is the last place Valkia wants to be. Ice Trolls are very good at beating up on her if given the... Oh my god, and she's just melting here. Absolutely pummeled. Oh, and she shatters too. That's brutal. Oh, Spaghetto in a tough spot now. Still a lot of infantry on the field, but losing all that leadership is going to be very, very painful. Khorne is very dependent on army abilities and good leadership to keep them in fights for as long as they need to do their damage. And without Valkia, they're going to lose a lot of the frenzy across the battlefield, and pretty wavering leadership on a pretty healthy unit of Chaos Warriors. See here, Fleshhound's not loving their life. And same thing over here, these Chaos Warriors, if Valkia was around, would be fighting even longer than they would be right now. They're about to break, and that's going to be very painful. Solo looking like he was in a strong position in the early going there, but maybe on the back foot now. Trying to answer across the battlefield on all these fronts is not doing him any favors. Fighting over here on the #1 as well as fighting on the other two objectives you already hold. Nothing actually sitting and preventing caps either, so if the infantry don't retreat and start sticking on these points, I think Norska is going to just keep doing stuff like this and collapse onto all of these objectives and start tearing apart what is here to defend. Hounds of the Blood Hunt, okay value, but I think that this is the second time they've come out, not doing too hot for themselves. Fighting all these Skin Wolves and Marauder Horsemasters who are doing some pretty good damage. 900 on these guys. Let's take a look at these fellas. 900 on these ones as well. Very efficient use of the Marauder Horsemasters is paying off in the late game here, and these Norscan Ice Trolls are fully uncontested at this point. Getting on top of these Marauders who are trying to move up onto the #2 objective. And I think just a double cap would still technically be enough. No, it wouldn't. It is triple cap territory for Norska, but it is looking increasingly likely that that is going to be what Norska is able to pull off. Another unit of Marauder Horsemasters. They did pretty good that first time around, charging right into melee combat against the Khornate Horsemen, just to try and deal damage to them, which isn't a bad call. You can see trading very evenly with them. And with the Lord gone, that's even if you are going to take a bunch of casualties on these guys, you will break the Khorne Horsemen first, because they already have a little less leadership than the Marauder Horsemasters, and then the Lord being gone as well. You can see the -10 there. Really making it rough for Khorne across the battlefield, and the infantry core is finally all dealt with. Just that steady incremental value and some really good casts in the early going, doing a lot of damage to infantry. And the Norscan Ice Trolls in the 4th quarter here have absolutely no fears, just charging into the backfield against these Khorne infantry who can't get anywhere near the points now. And I think the triple cap is about to come in here for the forces of Norska.
Unending glory.
And it looks like Solo Spaghetto is going to call it there, which is the right play. I don't think there was really anything on the battlefield that he could use, let alone to finish off the tattered Norscan units and deal with these infantry that are moving up on the points. But just killing these ice trolls, man. These ice trolls are pretty vicious. But there are answers to them on the Khorne roster, but a little too late for that now. GG's, well played to both of these competitors, and congrats to BossToss for first tournament win ever, I would guess. At least since I've been back involved in the community. I haven't ever seen him play before, like I said, so what an upset, honestly. The horsemen with throwing axes for 2 summons on these guys just isn't enough. They need to get all of their missiles out to really make themselves felt, and in terms of impact, and also fight in melee as well. They're really good at melee, so getting charges on cheap marauders is actually pretty cost effective for them, because they just dumpster stuff on the charge. It's pretty crazy. Fleshhound's doing okay. Hounds of the Bloodhunt came out twice. Only got half the value back for 2 summons. Minotaur's not doing too hot either, so... Infantry doing amazing, though. At least pretty good on the dual weapons, so... maybe going a little bit less into the Chaos Warriors and regular Marauders, and bringing the dual weapons seem to be working pretty well. Although I do reckon that throwing axes are... for the Norskins are a threat themselves. But I don't know. I mean, just Horsemasters are much more efficient at counter-skirmishing. So I don't know how often you see Norskin throwing axes coming out. Because, you know, most of the time Khorne's going to have shielded infantry who are going to mitigate a lot of the damage. So, I don't know. I think that is a good call by Spaghetto. Really nice builds, really well executed on this side of Norska here, and 1600 on this Marauder Horsemaster, who I think did come out twice, but paying for themselves very handily here. That's a clean, efficient skirmisher play, and it pulled the Khorne army apart. That's how you deal with these heavy metal infantry pushes, so love to see that style of play here in Dom. It's not all about holding the points. You can move about the battlefield and trade value until the late game, and it works pretty well, actually, you know. As long as you've got time left to get a triple cap, it's never over. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for this one, guys. The only thing that I could suggest for Spaghetto is don't over-rely on Furies in this matchup. They're good, don't get me wrong. And not bringing any of these Bloodletters or Brutes of the Hound out, a little bit brutal. Maybe bring another Minotaur, or if you really want to go crazy, bring the Knights of Immolation, because they do have the Mantle of Immolation, which gives additional weakness to fire. And Norscan Ice Trolls already have 45% weakness to fire. If you stack that on top of the Mantle of Immolation, as well as debuffing their melee defense, the secret tech is bring Knights of Immolation, and they can just hard carry the game against all of the Norscan large targets, just because they do so much effective damage against them. They flatten hounds as well, so they just completely counter Beasts of Tashnar, who are a staple for Norska, and they can beat 2 Norscan Ice Trolls one-on-one, or 1v2. If they fight them one-on-one, they beat them so badly that they can beat 3 to 4 Norscan Ice Trolls in succession. I have done a little testing on that. It's pretty crazy. So they're a secret tech against Norska, and I think not discounting Skull Cannons. You know, Skull Cannons are very good at counter skirmish, and would have been really nice to fire against these Horsemasters, because they just kind of went about the battlefield and did whatever they wanted. Some of them didn't trade super well at all times, but you know, paying for themselves and stopping up a lot of moments where you know, the Marauder Horsemen of Khorne might have gotten some really good damage against the Skin Wolves. It was pretty huge, and I think kind of turned the game on its head there midway through. So just something to keep in mind, man. I am going to leave it off here finally for real this time, guys. Y'all take care. GG's. Peace.